Our guest today is someone who decided to follow his heart over what he chose to study initially, that is, engineering and MBA. What led him to make that decision, his struggles, his aspirations, his journey, and what it is like to be in his current profession are all some of the things that we will talk about today in our episode in a nutshell, which we have now. Introducing the very talented Sambhav Khettarpal. Sambhav is an award-winning Hindi screenwriter. He has written for all major TV channels, and he has written for popular shows like Wagle Ki Duniya. What is it like to be a writer?
Okay, wow, that's an interesting question. I believe a writer allows you to be your most authentic self as an individual. I mean, when as a writer you can bring your own life on paper in form of books, in forms of novels, in form of screenwriting. So a writer actually allows you not just to bring your own life on paper, but also to bring the lives of other people around you. You can be your most authentic self as a writer. If I'm walking on streets, if I see a boy and I find that boy interesting, I can just make a character out of it and put it in my next story. Or possibly even with family members. मेरे घर में मेरी माँ कैसे सोचती है, मेरी बहन कैसे सोचती है. Then everything is an experience for you. The writer tells things which people don't generally speak of. And I think those things are the most important ones. And I think it's a great power a writer has, and it's also a big responsibility of a writer, because it's those things which nobody talks of are the ones that really matter. And I think I'm proud to say that I've done such things in my writing, and hope I continue to do so in the future as well.
How did you find your calling in writing? And then you followed it up with MBA. So really, did you stumble upon it? Did you know that you wanted to be a writer? Have you been writing when you were a child? How did you really decide that, okay, writing is where I want to be next, or this is what I want to do and make that my full-time profession?
Yeah, so I did stumble upon it, very honestly. It came out of sheer boredom. Of my engineering course, and my holidays were going on, and I realized by then that I am not enjoying engineering at all. The whole coding world does not fascinate me that much. But at the same time, I had some free time on my hand, because in engineering you do get a lot of free time. And I got this internship to write for a sports website. The website was called sportskida.com. I was a big cricket fan, sports lover, and I thought, why not give it a shot? And by the way, I wanted to be Harsha Bhogale while growing up. Like, he was my hero. I wanted to be like, hold a mic and ask him those questions. So I was kind of fascinated by that whole world. And when I got the chance to write for Sportskida, I really loved it. And for the first time, seeing your name on a website, on the front page, for a 19-year-old boy, it was huge. And I did get to, going forward, I got to write about so many different, matches, so many cricketers, analyze their journey, and that's when I started writing, very honestly. But it never became a profession, because I did want to, I was not sure if I can take it up full time. But it persisted for the next 7-8 years, almost, till I decided to be a full-time writer. And there is another big factor in this, my own parents, who felt that if you become a writer, पैसा कितना कमाओगे, क्या माइक लेके जर्नलिस्ट की तरह लोगों के पीछे भागोगे, how will you make a living out of being a writer? But so that was a very important factor, and I did feel that I can keep writing as a hobby and still pursue a more conventional career, maybe an MBA marketing job, right? But eventually I realized that what I am good at and where I stand out from other people is writing. And when I actually started getting that belief from other people as well, who felt that I am a very good writer and I can make a living out of it, that's when I decided that I will be a writer. And that's where I stand out from the rest of the world.
Why are parents reluctant to let their children pursue a career in writing?
They wish us well. They don't want us to have a career where we struggle later on. हर पेरेंट चाहता है कि आपका बच्चा आगे जाके एक सक्सेसफुल अच्छी जिंदगी जिए जहाँ उसे किसी चीज़ की प्रॉब्लम ना हो. बट हमारी पेरेंट्स की जनरेशन जहाँ से आती है उस ज़माने में राइटिंग करियर इतना फ्लरिशिंग नहीं था. उस समय शायद गिने चुने 2 राइटर्स थे. मे बी द ओनली राइटर्स यू न्यू वर सलीम जावेद, राइट? They did not know enough. And my father, who was a great writer, could not pursue a writing career purely because he could never make a living out of it. Mm-hmm. So it's more that they don't know enough, possibly, that they feel that kids cannot make a career in writing. Maybe they feel that they don't come from such a privileged background, mm-hmm. that even if your kid takes a risks and wastes a few years as a writer, mm-hmm. it's okay, mm-hmm. or they can take care of that. Right? So it's not that they don't mean well and they want to stop you from pursuing your passion. It's mostly because they don't want you to struggle later on in life. It's a very natural instinct. So yeah.
What are the common misconceptions and myths that surround the profession of writing?
Well, I always believe that even the misconceptions come from a place of truth. There is something which is true where the myths are also formed. I think one common misconception right now about writing is that writing is a lot of struggle and living a financial struggle, specifically. That आप एक झोला टांग के अपनी किताब लेके चलते रहते हो, दर ठोकरे खाते हो इंस्पिरेशन के लिए. घर में 6 लोग रहते हैं, उनके साथ आप अकेले आप रहते हो. You don't live a good life. I think people think that being a writer is a invitation to a struggle. I think that's one myth. I think there is a big misconception that only a certain breed of people end up being writers. People whose parents were writers themselves, or artists themselves, or creative people themselves. But to be honest, being a writer, you did not have a certain kind of background. Or even as a child, if you did not read enough stories, or you did not you did not write enough stories, it doesn't mean that after the age of 19 or 20 you cannot be a writer. I began my writing career at the age of 19, and 10-11 years down the line I'm here today. So there is no age of starting to be a writer. Even if you know about J.K. Rowling, she started writing after the age of 30. Right. That's when that's 10-20 years down the line, she is the highest paid writer in the world.
That's true.
So writing is all about expression. It's just about having a unique opinion, a unique voice, and wanting to put it on paper. And as I said, writing need not just be creative writing. There are different forms of writing. You can be a very technical writer. Today, if you know about automobiles, just write about automobiles. You can be a great automobile journalist if you have a passion for even something as basic as cameras or something, something very unique. Even different restaurants, there are so many opportunities today to write about such things. So just know what you're passionate about and learn to express. And that's all.
So a lot of kids come back and ask me, can we do a master's in writing, or are there certifications, or are there courses? And a lot of parents also feel a lot of comfort when they know that their children are studying this degree. But personally, writing is a skill, isn't it? So what's the fine line of learning and studying out there?
Okay, so in writing there are 2 things. One is the craft and one is the art. The art is something who you are. Art is a unique voice. That's the creative insight. आप अपनी आर्ट खुद डिफाइन करते हो और वो आप अपनी आर्ट खुद पेपर पे लाते हो. Nobody can match your art. Craft is the technicalities of writing. How do you start? If you're writing an article, what is the good start? What's a good middle? What's a good end? That is the craft of writing. Now, all these colleges will teach you the craft. Right? There are some very good colleges, and somebody who has the time, who has the resources, who has the money should definitely go and study in these colleges. But honestly, I would say today, with the advent of YouTube, with so many courses online being taught, MOOC courses, you can actually study all these things online. You don't really have to learn the craft by enrolling to a college and paying a hefty fees and stuff like that. Also, I would say you become a good writer by writing. So you're only a good writer if you are writing regularly, and bad writing makes you a good writer. So you first have to be a bad writer, and then eventually you'll be a good writer.
What's a bad writer? Or how does a writer be bad or is bad?
So bad writing is something that if I write something today and tomorrow if I see it, I realize that it did not work out. Right? Only if I have that first draft, can I improve on it. If I have nothing on paper, I cannot change it. So first you have to put something on paper, then over time improve it, because writing is rewriting. So you have to rewrite and improve, and that's what makes writing a very sometimes a painstaking process also. But it requires a lot of diligence on your part. You have to be very disciplined as a person.
Could you share about your process on how you create stories that connect with the audience, especially when depicting social issues on Indian TV? You have a knack of being creative and tactful.
I've told a few stories on television which were about social issues, things which were again not spoken in everyday conversations. Social issue only becomes a social issue when when many people have gone through that problem, and when I myself have faced such a thing. Why? How can I not say it? So coming to good touch and bad touch, it is something which I went through personally myself. I had faced that experience when I was a young kid. But, and yes, it stayed with me subconsciously for so many years. But eventually when I got a chance on a show like Wagle Ki Duniya, which was touching upon social issues, I could tell my story there. And once I did tell my story, yes, it was painful. It was also rekindling a lot of memories, but it was also a very emancipating experience. It sort of freed me of that feeling eventually. So I think that's the power of actually writing, because writing is expression, and you are a therapist, you would know that better. When you talk about something, you write about something, it sort of distances you from that whole pain of that experience. Coming similarly, the menstruation story, my wife Aditi, who is also a writer, felt very strongly about that subject, and she also could get her own emotions out in that story. So we can do. So it's not difficult, because we all face something in our lives. Some things are very painful, and if we could gather the strength and उस चीज को हम पेपर पे ला सकते हैं, I think that is also where you write the most unique story, because वो कहानी आपकी है और वो सबसे unique है.
You have written about some very sensitive and pulse-hitting topics. For example, stress in children and suicidal tendencies, good touch, bad touch, menstruation, like you said. How do you think can survivors or victims of such sensitive issues heal and overcome these setbacks in life? Yes, one of them you mentioned, you were able to write about it, and journaling in therapy is one thing. But really, because you've probably come across such stories, been one of it yourself, what do you think can be the healing journey, or how can victims overcome their pain and their struggle?
Firstly, you have to understand that it's not easy. You have to. It's very difficult, and you have to give yourself the credit of still living with that feeling, because उस feeling से गुजरना आसान नहीं है. तो सबसे पहली चीज़ है acceptance, कि हाँ मेरे साथ कुछ हुआ है, it's painful, and I want to face it. I want to talk to people about it possibly. I want to write about it, and once you're able to do that, I think you need the right people around you, because you cannot share it with everybody. Not everybody will get it. Even in your families, people won't get it. So say something. If you are feeling suicidal, if you are under academic pressure, or if you have dealt with something like good touch and bad touch, you need to first give yourself a lot of credit of still waking up every day and still being here today, and not not wilting under that pressure or that whole experience of it. So first give yourself a pat on the back that you were brave enough to go through that experience and you are here today, still on your feet, alive. And once you do that, you need to find the right people, and you need to gather the strength to speak up, and not just speak up, you have to shout in publicly, because you never know how many people's lives you change when you do that also. आप किसी और की जिंदगी बचा सकते हो, आप किसी और अपने दोस्त की हेल्प कर सकते हो यार, आप अपने किसी जो घर में किसी कजन की हेल्प कर सकते हो ऐसे. So, and trust me on that, that's the bravest thing to do. And if you can do that, you're a brave kid or a brave individual.
True that. And whatever stories that you have come up with, some of them being personal to you, it really requires a place of strength and courage to talk about things that have been so hard on you. It is, of course, kudos to you.
Yeah.
And thank you for telling such stories as a writer. On a lighter note, somehow, do you remember or recollect any funny incidents or anecdotes while you were writing your episodes, or anything funny or humorous that you could think of?
One of the funniest things I know I have gone through is that I was writing a day before my own wedding, because television doesn't allow you enough bandwidth to even have your own wedding. And I know people जो शायद maternity ward में थे and they just delivered a child because they had to write an episode because कल shoot पे जाना था यार, वो on air आना था. So these are some of the in a very wicked way the funny things in television which we go through as writers.
Next up is a game segment. And in this game segment, we are going to ask you a question which we're hoping you'd either answer in one word or one sentence at the most. The aim is to answer these questions within 60 seconds. Okay, so no thinking too much, just whatever that comes into your mind. My first question to you is, one thing you love about your job?
I can be myself. I will be caught if I lie, and I hate lying, and I can be the most authentic self whenever I'm a writer.
Okay, if you could live any one of your characters in real life, which one would that be?
I have lived that character, and that is my own self, because my first book was almost a semi-autobiographical novel about this young boy who goes to an MBA college and the funny things that happened to him later.
What was that book? We'd love to know.
The book is called I Too Had an MBA. It's called I Too Had an MBA, The Secret Diary of Love Khurana. Love Khurana is a character based on me, myself, so yes.
Definitely looking forward to reading that. Your favorite movie?
Wow, there's so many movies which are my favorite.
Especially as a writer.
Wow, as a writer?
Yeah.
Tamasha. Tamasha is a Ranbir Kapoor movie. It's one of my... It's not a hit film, by the way. It did not do well commercially, but I love this film because I could see myself in that film.
Okay. What drives a writer mad?
Deadlines.
What makes a writer happy?
Oh, the deadline is extended.
What is the USP of a good writer?
I think a writer has to be an empath. Somebody who can get multiple empathy. Somebody who can be in the shoes of other people, understand their emotions. I think that's what makes a writer sensitive. And a sensitive writer is a good writer.
Well, thank you so much for all your candid responses and all the insights that you shared with us today. I'm sure so many of us could be inspired to become a writer, to make that career transition if you're looking at it. The insights about the myths, the misconceptions, why parents are reluctant, are all tidbits that probably each of us could take home and get inspired, learn something from. Really, your story is very inspiring. From whatever you've come and wherever you have and chosen to make some certain decisions, all of this is something that's not just inspired worthy, but also something that will give a lot of people hope to begin anew, afresh, or come out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.